This is Rasa Lila Katha. We're continuing verse 62, which describes the supreme sadhana, sadhya and sadhana, and also we heard many of the glories of Radharani's form, her beautiful face, and her beautiful words, and the effulgence, the beauty of Radharani's face, and the beauty of her radiant, effulgent body have been mentioned here, and how she has a special mood of being a Sri Vrindavana Kunja Manju Grihini. She's a Grihini. She behaves sometimes when she's in a particular Nayaka Bhav, the loving mood of a transcendental heroine or beloved. It's called Vasika Sajika, where she's eagerly anticipating the arrival of her lover and waiting in the kunja, in the forest bower, love bower, and she decorates everything very nicely, personally, with her own hands, to greet her lover. So we heard that she's a charming Grihini. So the verse concludes, after glorifying Radharani's form and her qualities and her activities. This is 62. Lavan yamrita vartaya jagadidam samplavayanti sharad rakka chandramanantameva vadana jyotsnabhir atanvati Shri Vrindavana kunja manju grihini kapyasti tuchamaho Korvan akila sadhya sadhana katam dattva swa dasyotsavam. We touched on it briefly in the beginning of this class a couple of days ago in verse 62 of Rasa Lila Katha, how this highest fortune of attaining the direct service of Srimati Radharani as her handmaiden, Kinkari maidservant or dasi, is the greatest of all possible spiritual attainments. And the way to attain that, the abhideya, or the abhyas, or the practice, the sadhana, that also is the topmost of all sadhanas. So this sadhana, this Manjri Swarup sadhana, or this Raganuga Bhakti, Manjri Bhav, Upasana, Madhurya Mahi, Manjri Bhav Upasana, this type of worship in the mood of this loving mood of lovers, Krishna and his gopis, Gopi Bhav, eternally liberated divine consorts like Radharani, Lalita, and all the gopis assisting them like Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari. This is, of course, that path of sadhana, that marg, that bhakti marg, that is is also the greatest. And any other type of sadhana, at least in the consideration of Prabhupada Saraswati, any other practices of sadhana which will lead to unlimited varieties of specified goals or sadhyas, prayojanas, they are compared to this sadhana, which I mentioned, in Rag Marg, and this goal of Radha Dasyam and Radha's eternal service, they are all insignificant. Insignificant. He uses a very powerful and forceful Sanskrit adjective, tuchavam. He says, tuchavam aho. Aho, listen, it's amazing. Aho. Tucham. Korvan akila sadhya sadhana katam. All, listen, every other form of sadhana and sadhya, practice and goal, endeavor and attainment is simply tuchavam, insignificant, if compared to this. Compared to itself, or compared to material life of birth and death and misery. Any spiritual practice is, of course, good and beneficial and recommended for the adherents of those paths. It's like Krishna says in Gita, better than the materialist is the jnani, and better because the jnani is trying to get liberated, dharmart kam moksha, by following the path of Gyan Marg or yoga or meditation. So he's much better than the fruitive worker or the karmi. But even Krishna says higher or more developed in consciousness and possessing a higher aspiration is the bhakta who wants to attain Ayodhya and love of Ram as a Ramdas and Sita Dasi, or he wants to attain Vishnu Loka, Narayan Loka, Vaikuntha, Mukti Prapti. He wants to attain Vaikuntha and any of the various Ishtadevs of the Lord residing in the various Vaikuntha planets, Ram, Vishnu, Nrsimha, Jagannath, etc. Brihad Bhagavatamritam says that Lord Jagannath, you can see there, Sanatana Goswami is describing that Lord Jagannath has his own separate planet in Vaikuntha, Purushottam Kshetra, and Gopakumar, who's the main character in that philosophical spiritual odyssey of Gopakumar traveling through all the different planes of existence, continually chanting his Gopal mantra and continually hankering for the darshan and loving embrace and seva of his desirable Ishta named Madan Gopal, Krishna in Vrindavan, the beautiful cowherd boy. So he went everywhere, and as he went different places, they said, "Oh, you've just come from Purushottam Kshetra. You see on the earth planet. Well, also here in Vaikuntha, you can see over there, that's also Purushottam. That's also the residence of Jagannath here in Vaikuntha." So that point is established. So, of course, all of these paths, all spiritual sadhanas, and all spiritual goals are good. But when we compare it to what Lord Chaitanya came to give, no one has ever given such a gift before. It's very appropriate that when Srila Prabhupada, the ISKCON founder, when he went to New York and started his movement of pravachan and kirtan and his mission to preach and convert Christians and Western people to the Sanatana Dharma, the Vedic view, this Krishna Bhakti, Krishna consciousness, he rented a small storefront to make a center, a base, to preach Krishna consciousness. And the previous owners of that store was a gift shop. They were selling gift items, and they apparently closed that business. There was a big sign in front of the store on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, in New York City. It said, "Matchless gifts." Matchless. Atul Dan. Atul means no comparison. Atul. Matchless gifts. So Prabhupada was certainly out from that storefront. He was distributing matchless gifts, incomparable, most invaluable gift of Krishna Bhakti and Krishna Prem and Bhakti Sadhana and Bhakti Yoga. This Nam Sankirtan, the gift of Nam Sankirtan, the gift of Radha and Krishna's eternal seva, and the gift of attaining perfection in Goloka Vrindavan, and the gift of realizing and attaining one's eternal spiritual form to lovingly serve Radha and Krishna. All these gifts he was giving, basically, that was couldn't be a better name, because Gauranga Mahaprabhu, every day of Brahma or every kalpa, whatever it is, after so many millions and millions of years, Krishna comes to this world. And right after Krishna leaves, a few thousand years later, and the same yuga, and practically same period, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya, the combined form of Radha and Krishna Militam, Yugo, they descend as Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So Gauranga Mahaprabhu came into this world to give a matchless gift, something that hasn't been given for a long time, Chiritaram. For a long, long time, no one has given this gift of of Manjri Bhava Upasana or Gopi Bhava Angikara. Krishna's Kaviraj explains that Lord Chaitanya came, and when he's describing the various purposes, he wanted everyone to accept Gopi Bhava Angikara. So whomever he preached to, whomever he discussed with, practically, at least those that accepted him intimately and came close to him, they all adopted this line of bhajan, sarana, and sadhya. So he says that everything else is insignificant, so we can just look at that a little bit. How this is the third point of the verse about Radha's seva.